This could be one of the biggest January transfer windows in Premier League history, with arguably Spurs, Villa, Arsenal, Liverpool and Man City still in the title race. And it could come down to really who has the best window. Now, Arsenal have been linked to a number of players this January, and we're going to go through those players, talk about what's most likely to happen, what's not likely to happen, basically how realistic these targets are, and then talk about who Arsenal need to sign in 2024 if they want to win the title, who would be the most important January signing, and then who they should push on to sign maybe in the summer to become Premier League champions. So please do hit that like button, guys, if you have not already, and of course subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new. Well, I say Alice Talks Football, a key to football, to stay up to all things, because this is my second channel. So let's dive into the news. We're going to talk about Osimhen, Ivan Toney, all the players that Arsenal are linked to ahead of the January window. And as I spoke about at the beginning of the video, it's so important, sort of looking at the table. Arsenal 5 points off Liverpool, but we know that anything can happen. It can come down to injuries. It can come down to a little bit of luck. But it can massively come down to transfers. And looking at Arsenal, obviously I'm not an Arsenal fan, so Arsenal fans in the chat, if you personally disagree with me, tell me you think I'm wrong. But I think your number one priority needs to be a striker. I actually rate Jesus. I think he's a good player, but he's just not clinical enough with the chances you're creating. You need to get those goals. They're fine margins. I think Jesus is a great player, though. I think you need a left centre mid. I think you need someone to make you a little bit more fluid in terms of getting from the second phase to the third phase. You've got Rice, you've got Odegaard. I think you need someone else. And then I also think you just need a bit of fullback priority. I think Tomiyasu's brilliant. I think Joao Timber will be excellent. And I think Zinchenko can do a job, but he's vulnerable in the big games because he's defensively a little bit vulnerable. But I think Zinchenko is good for the majority of games. But Ben White's not banana and he's not really a right back. I would maybe look at fullback as well. But let's dive into sort of who Arsenal have actually been linked to this window. So in attack, they've been linked to Boniface, Osimhen, Toney, Vlahovic, and Solanke. In terms of realistic options, I would say Boniface is not realistic because Leverkusen might win the league, and Osimhen, they're going to have to pay a lot of money, £100 million for. I do think the other three are realistic options. However, I do think that Osimhen would be the best one they can get. In terms of midfield, they've been linked to Curtis Jones, which I generally can't see Liverpool selling him. And they've been linked to Diomande, who they were linked to in the summer, good player. But from what I've heard, they might also go for someone like Douglas Luiz if Villa will sell, and Villa probably won't sell in January. And then in defence, they've been linked to Diomande, they've been linked to Hato, and of course, a Toney return. But as I've said, to give context before I get into all the Arsenal transfer news and then what Arsenal should do and who Arsenal should buy, in my opinion, I want to say with FFP and clubs trying to fleece Arsenal because they'll know they're in a title race and they'll know they need a striker, it will be difficult. This January will be difficult to Arsenal to find the right deals. I'm sure if Arsenal can find the right deals for the right money, they will do it. But I don't know if they'll spend 100 million. They might spend 40 million, if you get what I'm saying as well. So what are Arsenal's reported plans just in general in 2024? Arsenal want to add a striker, 2 midfielders and a defender to their ranks before the start of next season. There's a feeling amongst many clubs there's a feeling amongst many at the club that the arrival of versatile defenders should be prioritised in January. So it's saying that Arsenal want a striker and 2 midfielders and a defender, maybe a versatile defender. They've got Joao Timber that's a versatile defender, but he's injured. But there's a feeling they could go for a versatile defender in January because Tomiyasu's going to the Asian Cup and he's obviously got injury problems. Timber's injured. It's kind of a Ben White, Zinchenko fullback pairing, which is where Arsenal look vulnerable. They've also got Kiwior, however you say his name. And I think, to be honest, if I'm Arsenal, I'd recall Kieran Tierney and then I would spend, I don't know if they can actually, but then I would spend the money personally on a striker. But the problem is maybe their options are only available in the summer. Maybe Arsenal have an idea of what midfielders they want. One's going to be a Thomas Partey replacement. One's going to be more Rene. Maybe Arsenal know what striker they want, but maybe they're only available. They've only got the funds to do it in the summer. Now, let's actually dive into the players that Arsenal have reportedly been looking at. So, Dusan Vlahovic is one of them. They were linked to him about 2 Januaries ago. It was this saga going on. He went to Juventus. Juventus need to sell. They're in a bit of a financial situation, and potentially they could offer a player to lower the price. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to include someone like Nketiah. I'm not sure if it will work. But it was actually said on Nketiah that Crystal Palace are interested in signing Eddie Nketiah from Arsenal this month, but the Gunners won't entertain any offers unless they can sign a replacement. So potentially they could get a bit of money for Nketiah to fund a replacement, like they got a bit of money for Balogun. But we'll have to see as well. But it was said by Ficheas, which isn't the best source of information, that Arsenal are ready to splash out on a striker in January with Boniface, Toney, Osimhen and Martinez, Lautaro Martinez, all targets ahead of the January window. And it has been said by other sources that Arsenal have been tracking Boniface, who is reportedly an Arsenal fan, by the way, as a striker option. The Gunners could have a huge advantage because he's a fan of the club. But as I said, I do not see Leverkusen selling anyone in January. They're in a title race, which leads Arsenal to the situation of Ivan Toney, or basically, I don't think Martinez wants to leave Inter, or triggering Victor Osimhen's release clause, and they could sell Nketiah to potentially fund that. And then they've got Vlahovic, who they could potentially be the most affordable as well. Who would I sign if I was Arsenal Football Club? If I'm Arsenal and I am serious about winning the league, if there's one signing that would win Arsenal the league, I think it's Victor Osimhen. I think that's one signing that can win Arsenal the league. I know they've had issues at fullback, potentially in the midfield, but the biggest issue is they don't have an elite striker. Jesus is a brilliant player. He's an all-round great player, but they don't have a brilliant goal scorer. And Victor Osimhen, you've got one of the best players in the world. He knows when to make runs. He knows where to be at the right time. You put a cross into it, it is on his head. He is versatile. He is fast. He is quick. He is young. He can do anything. He would be fantastic. And that would be the statement that Arsenal are serious if they got this player in. However, to do that, they'd have to spend 110 million release clause, which would mean they would have to sell Nketiah, and then they'd have to look to sell someone else at the club that they can get a bit of money for. Maybe a Ben White. I'm not sure who they think they could sell. Maybe a Vieira, and go all out. But realistically, I think if they want to buy someone, it would be Ivan Toney or Vlahovic. And I think Ivan Toney, in my opinion, is more suited to Arsenal. Now, who are Arsenal reportedly looking at in midfield? It was said that Arsenal have already made contact with Liverpool midfielder Curtis Jones ahead of a potential summer transfer, and Mikel Arteta really wants to sign the player. And I've seen some negative reactions to this, but I know why Mikel Arteta wants to sign Curtis Jones, and I'm going to get into that. Do I think Liverpool would sell him to Arsenal? Not at all. Do I think this could happen in January? Not at all. But Curtis Jones reportedly is actually an Arsenal fan, even though he grew up in Liverpool. It was also said that Arsenal are seriously interested in making a move for Martin Zubimendi, and that might be because of Partey's injury concerns, and Douglas Luiz. Villa won't sell him to Arsenal in January, but Arsenal are looking at a left centre mid and a Partey replacement, and I think as a number 8, Curtis Jones would be the best choice, and as a number 6, Douglas Luiz would be their best choice in terms of realistic price tag. I actually think the best player Arsenal could go for is Joao Neves, though. Now, this is what I do. If Arsenal had the money, and this is in the summer, they would go all out for Joao Neves. I think it's actually going to be like £85 million, but I think Joao Neves is the future. He's the future in that left 8 role for Arsenal, and he's someone they should maybe look at in the summer. But I don't think Liverpool are going to sell Curtis Jones. He's been very good for Liverpool lately, but I saw a lot of Arsenal fans being negative when linked to Curtis Jones. And I don't think they've realised that Curtis Jones has been brilliant for Liverpool lately. Absolutely brilliant. Curtis Jones brings control and retention in the final third, which for me is a big problem that Arsenal are having. They're giving the ball away a lot in the final third, or sort of getting it from the second third to the final third. They're not keeping the ball well, and that's when they lose the ball and they can be vulnerable. They're just not making the right passes. And Curtis Jones is a volume passer who's good in the final third, that's got good technical ability. And Uma had a tweet on April 17th. This was before this season. And he said Curtis Jones' contribution to the entire possession is fantastic, at the heart of dictating the mid and attack with appropriate directness and retention for Liverpool. And that is how I would describe Curtis Jones and what he would do for Arsenal. He would know when to be direct. He'd know when to retain the ball. Curtis Jones is actually statistically the best midfielder in the Premier League when it comes to ball retention, which is something Arsenal struggle with. Arsenal have given the ball away a lot in the final third this season, or just made the wrong pass. And as you can see here at the top, this is from Wisecout. It says Curtis Jones' accurate progressive pass percentage ranks first in the Premier League and 6th across Europe's top 5 leagues, and first among under 24 central midfielders. Curtis Jones, in terms of accurate passes forward, he's right at the top. And that's where Arsenal, I think, give the ball away sometimes, is in the final third, or they don't pick out that right pass. And I think with Arsenal's problems, sort of giving the ball away a little bit in the final third and sort of progressing the ball, Curtis Jones would be brilliant, because he'd basically bring that control to Arsenal. I generally think, and people call me crazy, people be clicking off, but I think Curtis Jones never going to happen would be good for Arsenal, because he would bring that control. He would be able to retain the ball, pick out a pass, and he's creatively very, very good. But I don't think it's going to happen. And I think, to be honest, Joao Neves would be even better. Now, Arsenal are reportedly looking at a defender, and a guy they've been linked to for a while is Diomande, who's got a 70 million release clause, which I assume would be triggered in the summer. Arsenal and Chelsea very keen on the guy. I personally want Man United to sign the guy, and it's sort of been told that Arsenal are really keen to bring the player, but it's most likely going to happen in the summer. If Arsenal did this in the summer, that's brilliant. Although Gabriel and Saliba are so solid that I do think they should be going for a fullback. I think that's where they need help. But obviously they've got Tomiyasu and Timber out for January. They'll probably be back by mid-end of February. So maybe they'll say, you know what, Tomiyasu and Timber back in, they look a lot better. But maybe it's time for them to recall Toney if they need. So concluding today's video, going through a little bit of the Arsenal transfer news. If I was the owner of Arsenal and the money was, and there was a lot of money available, I would go for Douglas Luiz, Victor Osimhen, Joao Neves, and Diomande, with the assumption that Timber and Tomiyasu would be able to stay fit the following season. If I had the power in January at Arsenal, I would probably recall Toney and go all out with Osimhen, with the hope that basically Emile Smith-Rowe and Vieira can step up into that left centre mid role. I think Emile Smith-Rowe's got a lot to offer at Arsenal, and I actually think that Arteta should take a chance on him. So that's my conclusion of what Arsenal should do in the January window if they want to become league champions, which for me is go all out for Osimhen, potentially look at midfielders, fullback depth. This is what I think Arsenal should do. Do I think Arsenal will do it? I'm not sure what they're going to do in January, as said. Anyway, please do hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. I will be doing a Newcastle version of this video soon. And obviously, Spurs look set to sign some people, so I'll do some videos on that and more. Thank you for watching. Bye.